I'm now recording and I'm going to jump right into Civil 3D. Okay. So last time I went over how to create a horizontal alignment for your road. Today we're going to do something called profiles. So profiles are, like I had mentioned, you took a huge saw and ran it down the center line of that road and flipped it to look at it at its side view. That's what you're going to see. And typically your profiles are done at an exaggerated scale. Okay, so one of the things you want to look at first is your drawing scale. Okay, so if this is set to 20, you're probably going to want to have it set to what your drawing scale was for the subdivision that you had, 50 scale or whatever it was. Okay. The two things you're going to need are you're going to need the surface and you're going to need your alignment. Okay. The alignment I went over with last time. Okay. The surface. If you're in the drawing and you have the topo in here as an X reference, your first step is going to be to detach it. Okay. If it's in there as an X reference, Civil 3D sees it, but it doesn't see it to create the profile. So it just sees sort of a picture of it or a snapshot of it. The surface isn't actually in the drawing. Okay. If you go to tool space and prospect, right? If you open up tool space and then if you switch over to prospector, you'll see right now there's no surfaces in this drawing. Okay. You need the surface to create the profile. Okay. In industry, the typical thing to do is use something called a data shortcut. Data shortcut surfaces. So you'd open the drawing, create a surface, create a data shortcut for it, and then be able to use it in this drawing. We're not going to do that because this requires everything to be set up on a server. Right? We don't really have time to go through that. Just recognize that when you get out in the real world, data shortcuts are Civil 3D's version of X references. So X references are kind of references that are in CAD. Data shortcuts are X references that are in Civil 3D. So how are we going to get around this? We need the surface. So we're going to insert the surface drawing as a block into this drawing. Okay. So type insert. Up here at the top, go to browse, navigate to wherever you have it downloaded to, select it, hit open, and it'll think for a second. It'll actually think for more than a second because remember, this is like a 4 or a 5 meg drawing that you're inserting. So this is going to take a little bit of time. When you get to this point, it asks you using geographic data. You see how small these numbers are? You can tell it prompt for insertion point or you can accept it. It is so small, it's not going to make a difference in what you're doing. This is more for GIS, large scale regional mapping type things. Okay. So you can use the geographic one. Okay. And it'll think for a couple minutes. See how it's flickering down here at the bottom, and then it'll bring it in. Now, you need to be aware if you brought this in exploded or not. You see down here on the bottom, there's a little radio button for exploded. If you brought it in exploded, great. If you brought it in not exploded, which is what I did, I'm going to close this. You see how the drawing is here, but if I list it, it tells me that this thing is still a block. Okay? And if you go over to Prospector, you're like, well, there's no surface there. What's going on? Because it doesn't see it, because it's a block. It's like if I handed you my backpack. It doesn't see the pens that are inside the backpack, it just sees the backpack. So what you need to do is you need to explode this. So this is the next important step. Okay, so type out explode, like just spell the word out, and then you're going to select the object. Then you're going to hit enter. Then you're going to wait. This is going to take a little while. Okay? You need to be a little patient. It shouldn't take 10 minutes, but it's going to take more than a minute or two. Okay? So the next thing that I'm going to go over, hopefully if I have time, is the textbook problems and the calculations for vertical curves. I'm periodically going to be watching this to make sure it has like.
Would we borrow it and explode it? Would it still take us outside?
Probably, yeah. It'd just take a little longer to bring it in. So your other option is if you start with that topo drawing, do the save as of it and call it your profile. Then do your alignments in that drawing with the other stuff X referenced in. Then you can skip this step. Thank you. Thank you. Did everybody follow that? So there's more than one way to do this. You can skip this step if you do a save as of the topo drawing and create your alignment in that drawing rather than this. Okay. So now it's done. Now if I list this, see how it says AEC surface? It is now a surface. Do not explode this twice, because if you explode it twice, it's no longer going to be a surface. Okay, it's going to take that property away from you. So don't explode it twice. Okay. So now, if I come over to here, surfaces, see how I now have my surface? See how it's giving me some errors there? The way you get those errors to go away is select it so that it's highlighted in blue, then right click. The first thing you're going to do is unlock it. Unlocking it gets rid of that little eraser symbol with the minus. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to, up here near the top, you're going to rebuild it. And then that symbol is going to go. Now you're good to go. Questions about that before I move forward? So in the drawing, you're going to do the profile. You have to have your alignment and you have to have that existing surface. You have those two things, you're ready to create your roadway profile. Okay. So just like the alignment, there's a pull down. If you go to home on your tool space, if you have something else that doesn't look like this, there should be something that says home. If you click home, it will bring you to here. You have an alignment and profile here. You also have, it's a little hard to see because of the Zoom title block, like the Zoom ribbon, but there's also a profile here. What I'm going to show you lives in both places. You can do it at either spot. It's the same command. Okay. So from the pull down, it's create profile from surface. Okay. From this menu, it's create profile or create surface profile. It's the same thing. It will bring up this dialog box. Remember, I created 2 roadways. Okay. My first one is part B. Thank you, Pearson. Right? And you see how I have a surface. Okay. If you're missing something, it will bring this up, but it will either find the alignment or the surface. So both of them have to be there. Let's say for the sake of discussion, we only wanted to run this instead of from the beginning to the end. Maybe I only wanted to run it to station 1500. Like, you can specify where you want it to begin and end. You can also specify if you want to see offsets from that center line. I'm going to say no on both of those things. Right? Down below here, you see where it says profile list, there's nothing here. If I try to create this now, it's not going to create anything. I want to create an existing ground profile, a line of the existing ground that follows the center line of my roadway. Does that make sense? So there's my roadway. I need to bring this down here, so you just add it. So hit add. See how it says it made it? See right here where it says style design? Is it a design profile or is it an existing profile? It's an existing profile. So if you go down here to style and change it to existing and hit OK. Now the next thing is I want to see it. I want to create it. So you hit draw on profile. Draw on profile. It's telling you the alignment. It's going to give it a name. I typically just leave it what it's defaulted to. And you can change this style. I'm just going to use the default for full view. So on all of these, I'm just going to hit next, 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 next. Or you could just hit create profile. Right? Again, I changed my mind. I only want to show a certain range. You can specify that range. Here, you can say how high you want the profile to go. Mine is going to go from 400 to 440. Again, I'm going to accept the defaults for lack of anything better at this point. So really, this is just hit next, 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 next. This would be if you had any structures that you wanted to show on your profile. That's more for a 400, 600 level class. Not really going to worry about that. Again, it's just next, 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 next. Okay. And then you won't be able to hit next anymore. Or at the very beginning, you could have just selected create profile. It's the same thing. So now it's going to ask you for a base point. Okay. If you pick right here, it's going to draw it over the top of the rest of your site. So just go off to the side someplace. Ta-da. So this starts down at the lower road. There's my low point for roughly where the pond is. And then it goes up to the other road. Okay. These are percentages of how steep that grade is. So you see how this is flatter and it gets steeper here. So it's 4% negative going down, and 5%. Then it levels off, and it starts going back uphill. You see how there's like a whole bunch of them over the top of each other? That's pretty cluttered. If you select one of them, it selects all of them. So if you select one, right click, you have CAD properties and profile properties. This is CAD, this is Civil 3D. Right, so if you click on properties, select that. Everybody sees this weeding value under labeling. Make that weeding value something larger. I'm gonna make it 10. And you hit enter, and look what happens. You lose some of it. I'm gonna change it to 20. That looks much more clean, right? Am I going too quick? Pretty basic, right? So now, am I gonna build my road just right over the existing ground? Probably not. But from one road to the other, I'm held at the two ends, right? I have to tie into that existing road. If you zoom in, see how that slope right here? That's the existing roadway. Okay. Same thing up at this end. There's the existing roadway. Okay. So how do you create your finished profile? Well, same thing under profile, you can go to profile creation tools. Then it's asking you to, which profile do you want to work in? Okay, I want to work in this one. Okay. Now I'm going to create a finished grade one. And I'm going to hit a design profile. And then this complete label set. Okay. If this stuff isn't appearing, same thing as the alignment. You need to insert that base drawing that we had from the beginning of the semester. Okay. Hit OK. Then this should pop up. Profile creation. Okay. Remember what we said, your finished grade should roughly follow the existing ground as much as possible to minimize the amount of earth moving that you're going to do. The less earth moving you're going to do, the more money you're going to save on construction costs. Okay. The way you create tangents, straight lines, straight grades, is this command right here. Just like anything else, if you hover over it for long enough, it will tell you what it is. Draw tangents without curves. Yes, please. Am I going to change the existing roadway? No, not if I have to. Where I'm tying in, I'm going to use my snaps and click the two endpoints, and there's the existing road. Now remember, we have up to an 8% differential that we can add at this intersection without adding a vertical curve. As you go through the site, what's the maximum differential? We talked about it. 1%. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of follow the existing ground as much as possible. Okay. See how I'm kind of eyeballing that slope coming out? And then I'll make it a little steeper here. And then for this, see how there's a little hiccup there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball splitting the difference. So if this is the finished grade of my road, I'm going to cut material out of here and push it into that spot there. Okay. I'm just kind of eyeballing what I think looks good. Can you follow the ground more closely and come up and level and up? Sure you can. Absolutely. This is your design. Then we got to get up to this existing road up here. But I think I want to add a vertical curve here. And then most likely that's where my road is. So after you hit enter, what's going to happen is it's going to label wherever there's a grade break and whatever those slopes are for you. Okay. Since this is a design, right? Are you gonna build a road to 1.5%, 4.65%? Or does it make sense to make those like even slopes and even percentages? Well, how do you do that? With this dialog box open, right? See this button right here? It's like a green circle with a pencil. If you select that, it tells you every grade break that I have. Okay. So that first short little stretch of road is 1.63%, and the last stretch is 3.08%. This is the existing road, so I am not going to change that first and last segment because I'm not going to go out and rip the road up if I don't have to. Make sense? But you see, after the beginning and end, see how I have this 1.5% or 1.55? Yeah. Let's change it to something more uniform. I'm going to change it to 1.55%. If you zoom over to there, it's automatically updating this for you as you go. Is it me or did the lights just flip? So now I'm at 4.65%. Well, let's change it to -5. Let's change this one to +4. Change this to 5. Change this to 2. Okay. Now, see how it changed those grades for me automatically? What was that? Pretty cool. Okay.
When you did that, it changed the line one.
Oh, it did? Well, let's go back and fix that. Oh, yeah, you're right. So I believe the last slope was 3.0. I think it was 3%. So your last grade is going to be something odd, and that's okay. But the rest of it should be somewhat uniform. Okay? Everyone follow? So now, I'm going to close this for a second. What's the last thing I got to do? Put the vertical curves. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's not ending at the right spot. No, it is not.
Like over here?
No, it's not.
That's okay. Thanks for. It kind of looked funky. This end of the road, there's kind of a bank here, like it drops off. So that's why that's why it kind of looks funny. Okay. So now to create the curves, there's so many different ways to create these curves. I'm going to show you the way I want you to create it, and the rest of it, you know, I wouldn't necessarily worry about. Right? Typically, the way you would do it is you would design it based on sight distance. Stopping sight distance or headlight sight distance. That's what you would base it on. So if you do your curve, you calculate your sight distance, it's below what you need. What do you got to do to the vertical curve? Make it longer. If it's above what you need, cool. You can leave it big. Oh my. It's a profile through the road. So if this was my road, right? Cross sections would be looking in this way. Profile looks in along its whole length. Okay. So 0 is down here. And as you go up the road, if this is like 1,000, this would be 1,000. And that's what that graph represents. What the grades are doing along the center of the road. The first one was what the existing is, and then what we're doing now is the design. Okay? So to do the vertical curve, under this profile creation tool, right, over here near the middle, this icon that looks draw fixed parabola. What's a vertical curve? Parabola. Between points. Between 3 points? Nah, that's not what I'm looking for. What I want you to do is draw a free vertical curve. This one right here. Free vertical curve parabola. Okay? That's what you're going to use. When you select that, on the command line, you should see select first entity. Okay? So you're going to select the grade going into where the curve's going to be. And then it says select next entity. You're going to select the grade going out of the curve. See how it highlighted the curve or the whole alignment? Okay. Now down here is where you're going to specify what you want the curve, what parameters you want the curve to be. K value is sort of a measure of comfort. Okay. Anybody ever go over one of those country roads where it like drops off? That K value is really high. Or I'm sorry, that K value is really low. Okay. The higher the number, the more gradual the curve. Okay. For the most part, I don't think you're going to have a case where you're going to make a curve anything other than 200 feet. If it's like a short curve like this one you can make like 100, but you know, anything like that, you can make 200. Now there's ways to do these based on sight distance, but for right now, do something uniform. 200 is a good start. So after you draw it, it draws the curve, right? But you see how I'm still in the command? You can select the next curve if you want it. Okay. So I'll do another one. We'll do this one. And since the grade change is much more gradual, I'll make this curve 100 foot. Then when you're done, hit enter a second time and watch what it does for you. Wow. It does all the math for you. It tells you where the low point is. If it was a crest vertical curve, it'll tell you where the high point is. Gives you the beginning and ending stations. Gives you the PVI, or according to the textbook, VPI. Vertical point of intersection, point of vertical intersection. It's the same thing. It's where the two tangents would meet if you projected. Sorry? No. Good? Yay, nah? Okay. You say, Barlow, I wasn't done. My toolbar's missing. Edit profile geometry. So if you select it, I'll do that again. Select what you started drawing, right click, go to edit profile geometry, and it brings that table back up. That tabular input that I showed you, again, that's that little green dot. Okay? One more thing. Well, two more. Down here along the bottom. See how it's giving me two sets of numbers, but both sets of numbers are the same elevation? That's because both sets of numbers are referencing the same surface. So what you have to do is tell it, one of them is the one surface, the existing, and one of them is the finished surface, what you designed. Okay? So if you select those labels, right click, see where it says band style? Or actually, no, I'm sorry. I think it's profile view style. Nope. Profile view properties. All right. So select it, right click and go up to profile view properties. Up here along the top, these are all of the tabs that you have that live in here. If you go to the tab that says bands, like if you open this and it's on one of these other ones, select bands, okay? You slide over, you see where it says profile 1, profile 2. If you select profile 2 and switch it to vertical, okay, and hit apply and hit OK. See how you now have 2 sets of labels with different elevations? 40806, there's 40806, 41083. So the number on the left is the existing grade. The number on the right is the finished grade. Is that a cut condition or a fill condition at station 8+00? Fill is the finished is higher than the existing. Make sense? Everybody reasonably comfortable with this process? Let's talk about one last thing. I have 2 roads, don't I? Yes? I want your main road profile. People have asked about extra credit. I'll give you extra credit if you give me profiles of all of your roads. But what has to happen to this road? What do I need to know to design this road? I need to tie in, don't I? They can't be at different elevations. This elevation has to be the same as this elevation. Make sense? So how do you know that? So how do you figure that out? So I'm going to go through that quick. Okay. So if you zoom into one end of the roadway, okay, and I'm going to minimize this so you can see the whole menu bar. What I'm looking for is this inquiry tools, right? Inquiry, show inquiry tool. So that brings up that little dialog box. I want to know the station and alignment at a particular point. Now remember, this is going to have 2 stations, right? It's going to have a station for the one road and a station for the other road. Okay. So I want to know this first intersection. So for par D, this first intersection, see how you have this little green box? Select that little green box and use your snaps endpoint for the main road. That is station 5+7482. Okay. What is it for the other road? So all I have to do is go up and change the name and watch what happens. It still remembers the last point. So it's 5+00 for the other road. So this is what it is for par D. That's what it is for the other. So that's my first intersection. Now I'm going to go up to my other intersection. Same thing. Switch this back to par D. Tell me what the endpoint of this line is. So select point coordinate. So you actually have to select that box, then use your snaps. My other intersection is 11+2140, right? And what is it for? 11 plus 50, 47. So this is what it is. So this is intersection 1, intersection 2. Right? So if I come over here to this roadway, I am going to do a polyline starting at the beginning of my road. This is just the construction line. Okay. What was the beginning station for my main road? What was this starting from? Anybody remember? Zero, right? We all remember stationing, right? All you do is drop the plus sign. So that first intersection is 574.82 feet from the beginning. So that polyline, if I offset it, there's the one intersection. And then the other intersection is at 1121.40. So I'm just doing 2 horizontal offsets. So that's where the center lines intersect. So now my finished grade has to match at those 2 points, agreed? I need to know the elevation, don't I? How do I figure that out? Profile view, station and elevation at point. Yes, please.
So, hold on, if you zoom back out. That start to end point is your whole curve line.
It goes around the whole line.
Why are the intersections? It doesn't make sense why they're that, like where they are. Wouldn't the one be like about a quarter of the way from the beginning and then another one be?
Well, this follows. That profile starts down here, goes all along here,
Right.
and then this is this.
Right, so the intersection with the first, with the little loop, why is it towards the end? It seems like it would be closer to the beginning. Isn't that red marker?
Yeah, this is the center line, so it's between 5 and 6. Oh, yeah. 575.84. Yes, thank you. For some reason, that first offset wasn't right.
Okay.
And let's double check the second one.
Oh,
Good eye, Davis.
yeah, it was 574.82. You put 575.84.
Offset 574.82, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Up. Now 1121.40, right? Yeah. Sorry about that.
No,
Thank you for catching. Okay, so now we need to know what those elevations are at those 2 points. So you select your profile. Go to inquiry. Actually, I'm going to start this from scratch again so that you can see it. Inquiry, show inquiry tool. Up here, go to profile view, station and elevation at point. You want to select the profile that you're working in, and then the point coordinate. Then use your snaps, and it will tell you at this intersection, 574.82, it's 401.82. 401.82. So that's the grade I need to hit at the other end, or on that other profile. Okay. Now this one, do the same thing, where it says point coordinate, and you can expand this to see more of it. Hit point coordinate, then use your snaps, and then pick the intersection. 11/21/40. This one's 4/23/68. So those are the two grades that you need to tie into. Make sense? And then those on the next profile that you create, that's going to be your grade at the beginning and end for the next profile. Again, for the assignment, horizontal alignment, existing grade and finished grade, on a drawing title block, black and white. I'll do an assignment sheet so you have it. Same as the others. The assignment's going to be the main road. If you have other roads and you do those, I'll assign extra credit. Deal? Chris?
If your intersection has to be in the vertical curve.
Yes.
Is that a problem?
No, you're just going to use your snaps and select that intersection.
Okay.
So like if you zoom in here, you know, and you wanted to know that point, you're just going to go to show inquiry tools, back to point coordinate. And you see it'll select the intersection of that point. Or for the purposes of what you're doing, you can just eyeball it and get a close number.
And that's not like a design problem. Like that's not like an unsafe thing to do, to have an intersection.
No, it is not an unsafe thing. You just gotta, what you have to do, Chris, is you have to make sure. Let me stop this and start saving.